Hi, I'm Marbellos, and this is my first game, Radish Retail. I started this project at the start of June, and somehow summer is already over, and school is back in season. This change will take a big hit on the project, and I think it's about time I lock in and grind out the rest of what I planned for the game. But what else do we need to do? To keep myself on track, I made a list of everything that needs to get in the game, alongside some optional stuff that enhance the experience, like you. If you want to be featured in my small indie project as a character or cameo, leave a comment down below with a nickname and animal of your choice. Anyone who does this will get in. Now, in only 24 hours, I need to check everything off of this list, or else my game risks the chance of entering development hell. Once I get the core elements fully added, I'll be able to finally put in numerous additions that I've been waiting for. We can't do that without finishing strong though. With the timer started and the list written, let's get into it.
Please like and subscribe.
First order of business, I gotta finish the shop. I think I've spent enough time beating around the bush when it comes to finishing this thing. Its only current purpose is to look pretty, so let's add some functionality to it. Before doing so, let's pack this thing with some more content. I quickly drafted up some ideas and here's what I landed with. This is the business upgrade. When purchased, the cost for radishes will go up and money will be easier to obtain. These purchases can be stacked and will allow the player to raise their profits, but in turn will require them to handle higher amounts of currency. Another addition will be the gift. This links to something I'll add later, so stay tuned. Alongside those, I'm also adding the bomb. If purchased, the mining process will automate itself, and every 3 seconds, a bomb will do damage to the current ore. I think that's enough additions for now. If we want to finish the shop, one thing we need to do is create an inventory. I created a new folder that will manage how much of each item the player has. For the player to see and manage their inventory, I created a dedicated tab in the menu. I made it so the player's inventory is tracked by text labels. Here they can sell some assets if they feel they have too much. This management is meant to personalize the experience, since you get to choose which and how many upgrades will get you to your goal. With the inventory set up, let's get to work and add some functionality to each purchase. I've already gone ahead and added a cost for each item in the shop. These are subject to change as needed, but will help me test balancing and game pacing. I started off on the easier side of things and got the skip day purchase done first. This one is self-explanatory and was easy to script in. That actually goes to say for all of these, since all I'm doing is reducing the player's coins and adding the value to the inventory. Now it's time for the hard part, and that's allowing the player to see what each upgrade is doing and actually allowing them to manage the properties of each one. This is what the manage side of our inventory tab will be for. Let's start work on the farm plots. I dreaded even the thought of beginning work on this one, but it's time I get it finished. Originally, I planned to have a timer that would grant the player money every time it reached 0, but for scripting purposes, I simplified its design. Now, the farm plot will have a new value for the amount of money it will generate. On startup, this will be something low like 10 coins. As you purchase more employees, this generated number will increase. You'll get granted this money at the end of each day. With this system, I don't have to deal with the annoying timer and can get this added to the game faster. The only real complicated part of this process was calculating and presenting the earned profit at the end of the day. But I was so locked in, I was able to get this added in one sitting. It wasn't without its challenges though. Now that we've finished that, I say we take a quick break from the shop and move on to the next big thing. In order for a game's core gameplay loop to be completed, it must have these 5 things: an action, a challenge, a reward, feedback, and lastly, a return to the initial state. Most games handle the return with a game over screen. I set up the game so that a game over screen will be the most reasonable way to restart the gameplay loop, though I don't want a game over to occur too soon. As a solution, I've designed 2 new features with the point of solving this. One will be the debt system, and the other will be a play length toggle. Before starting a new game, the player can choose how long they want to go for. This will be counted in in-game days. If the player is able to make it to the finishing day with their quota and debts all paid off, they will win. If not, they lose and can restart. Even upon winning, I plan to allow the player to keep playing on their save file if they want to. This is also optimal for people who have cooked attention spans. This way, they can choose to play only a quick match if they want to. In order to implement this, we gotta get both a winning screen and losing screen designed. I started with the game over on a new scene. This is just a beta design, so don't expect it to look great. While I was working on the menu, I realized I never added a high score system, so I'll add that to the to-do list. Spoiler alert, I never got to this. I'm kinda starting to feel that developer burnout, so I think it's time I take my first break. I think I'm off to a good start, so a break shouldn't be that bad. So I might have just spent half the day away from my computer. I got distracted and caught up in a lot of other things, so now I just lost half a day's worth of work. If I want to finish my game, I'm gonna need to re-lock in and grind out these updates. Hopping back in, let's start work on the time toggle feature. I made a new menu so the player could select a limit for their save file when creating a new game. Through some simple scripting, I got this into the game. I somehow did this in the least efficient way possible, but all that matters is that it works. While adding this, I kept making tweaks to the design until I landed on something that I was fine with. Since I spent a while on the the design, I started having second thoughts on whether or not this was an addition even worth adding to the game. Who would make players choose a time limit on a game they've never played before? What if someone gets invested into their save file only for it to be wiped since they chose a shorter time limit? These are questions that made me consider changing this to a game mode feature, but I don't have any other game mode to offer. For now, I'll keep it as it is, but I definitely plan on changing something here before the final release. If you have an idea, drop a comment. One change I need to make is the debug menu button. Since we already have a fleshed out menu, this isn't needed anymore. I replaced it with a button that brings up the menu in case someone isn't aware of the tab and escape keybinds. With that quick nitpick fixed, it's time we work on some bigger things, especially since we're running low on time. Two things I've always wanted to add were random economic events and a savings account. Since we're running low on time, let's start on the easier of the two and get a savings account added. With the savings account, players will be able to store their money without worrying about potentially losing it. Creating the UI for this system was pretty straightforward, but it did come with its fair share of debugging. A lot of mistakes that slipped through the cracks were solved, and a lot of uncaught bugs were dealt with. In terms of actually making the savings account work, here's what I did. I added a new control node to the menu. As a subchild, I added a line edit node. I then attached a script to the control node since I need to create a filter for what goes into this text box. Here I tried scripting a quick filter that would only allow positive numbers to be typed in, but after a few attempts, I couldn't get this to work. After looking at the documentation, I discovered what a spin box was. This was essentially the same thing, but off the get-go only allowed numbers to be typed in. As a trade, the spin box doesn't allow for as much text customization, but luckily we don't really need that. My next challenge to overcome was updating the text to display whatever the player would type. I added this by simply dragging the value change signal from the node viewpoint and updating the text within the function. Next order of business is a confirm button and a separate file that will hold this information. I simply reused some of my old script to get this up and running, and with a bit of testing, I was able to get the saving done properly. We officially now have a savings account worked into the game, so we can check that off our list. At this point, I started to cut corners on features that were going to make it into the game, since my 24-hour mark was going to be a lot harder to hit than I thought. Anyways, what better time to take a break than now? Maybe staying at a computer all day isn't my thing. Let's lock in. I think it's time we finally get debt added. If the player is unable to make a purchase using their pocket money or savings, they can still make purchases, but this will put them into debt. Holding debt for too long results in a game over. I created a new global variable and added a check to every purchase. If no other payment method is available, a pop-up will ask if the player wants to purchase and go into debt. Adding this was a heftier task than I imagined, but with some grinding we got it in. While testing my debt system, I also found a flaw with my saving system that required me to rewrite how saving data is managed. I created a new workaround that will hopefully fix any issues. Okay, we've got a lot done, but there's still a lot left to do, and we're already almost out on time. Now I can see why games are always getting delayed. It takes a real grind to keep pushing out these additions without getting developer burnout. Luckily, my game is a small project. Even though I haven't ticked everything off the list, we still have a good amount of content to show for a beta version of the build. I've actually managed to create something that I often caught myself playing for the fun of it in the process, so I count that as a win. As more additions continue to be added, I think I'll have a good game in my hands and a finished project under my belt. Well, with that, the timer is now up. Here's everything I was able to add to my project in 24 hours. First, I was able to finish the shop and get the inventory system completed. I was also able to lay out the pre-design for the game over script and design. Then I added a time length toggle at the start of a new game, allowing players to choose the length of their save files. After that, I added an ATM that allows the player to store and manage their money. I also finally added the debt system, allowing players to make expensive purchases without needing to worry about how much money they currently have. For ease of access, I also revamped the menu button. Lastly, I rewrote my entire saving system, as well as patched out various bugs and glitches. That about wraps up everything I was able to achieve in a day's worth of work. Only 3 months ago, I didn't understand a lick of programming, but with some grinding, I'm now able to bring my creations to life. As per always, let's take one last look at the game. Thanks to everyone who stuck around up to this point. I think it's about time I head out, so until later, I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.